I'm going to show you a technique for using materials to add variety to duplicated objects. Often in Blender we need to duplicate a model multiple times, but maybe we don't want them all to look identical, like wood panels or stone slabs or foliage. This technique can help save a lot of time and add in some much needed variety. So let's start with this Lego brick. So this is the brick that we did in our previous tutorial, go check that out. But let's say we want to duplicate this brick multiple times and we want it to, as Lego bricks do, have lots of different colours. So we go into the material, and the key node here is on the input, go to Object Info, and we're going to use this random output here, and all that does is gives us a number between 0 and 1, but it's a random number based on the kind of the object instance. So the way we would do this is I'm just going to create a colour ramp. Just pop that in between. Okay, I'm just going to connect the random to the factor and the colour into the base colour. Okay, so that changes the colour of our Lego brick, but we're going to add in multiple. So I've added in, just by pressing the plus button here, many of these stops. If you hit the drop down here, you can say distribute stops evenly. Okay, and we've got, I don't know, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so let's just set the colour for each of them. So first of all, we're going to check the interpolation to constant. I'm going to leave the first one as black. And let's go to the second colour here. Let's pick a colour and we'll go with a nice strong red. And we go to the next one. I'm just thinking about kind of Lego colours here. So we have a blue. It's kind of a maybe blue like that. Next one, let's go for yellow. It's bright yellow. Obviously very saturated colours, Lego bricks generally. Go for green. It's a bit darker, the green, so let's just bring that down a bit. Okay, and I think we'll make this one white. So then we've got kind of the multiple colours here. Okay, so that's currently red, and the reason for that is the number must be basically somewhere around here. So if I was just take that out, as you can see now 0.5 is the number, and that's kind of somewhere in the middle. As I sort of move that up and down, it changes colour to different colours. Okay, so the random then essentially is just plugging a value into here. So if I duplicate now this Lego brick on the y-axis, the second one is yellow. Okay, so let's duplicate 2 more, another red one. Let's duplicate along the x, and so you can see very quickly get lots of different colours. Okay. So I'm going to delete these now, and what I want to show you as well is that this works perfectly well with a particle system, which is really helpful. So what we'll just do is, let's create a plane, scale that plane up to be really quite big. I'm going to go into particle settings, new, hair, let's just go with 100 for now, and just zoom out a little bit. Let's change the render to object, and we'll make the object our brick. Okay, let's just hit the object rotation, and let's just scale those bricks up a little bit. So it's kind of rotated incorrectly right now, but let's rotate on the Y by 90 our original brick, and then let's hide it. And you can see there that as it creates all the instances of the bricks, it uses that lovely material node, and we get all the different colours, which is really helpful. Okay, so now let's take a look at an object that uses an image texture as its basis. Okay, so we've got this kind of wooden panel here. If we were to duplicate this wooden panel, obviously it would look identical. And that's okay, but really we want some variation with our wooden panels. We want them to kind of look like they all belong together, but we don't want them all to look absolutely identical. So let's go into the material for our panel here. And this is just a very bog standard basic material, PBR material. We've got a wood colour here, a roughness going into the roughness, normal map going through the normal map vector node and into the normal. I've already got the texture coordinates using the UV output into the mapping node, and in color, I'm not applying any changes right now, but we have a hue saturation node here that I'm going to use to create some changes in color. Okay, so let's add in our special node. So if we go into Object Info, okay, now we're going to use this random node. But if I was to plug that straight into hue now, it gives us really kind of strange results because it's using kind of the full range of a 0 to 1. Okay, that's doing too much with the hue. Okay, so the way we get around that is I'm going to use a converter map range node. Okay, so now we put the random value into the value, and what this will do is this allows you to restrict the number coming in, but we won't do that. We'll leave it as it is, so between 0 and 1. But it allows you to map that range against outputs. Okay, so hue starts at 0.5. So let's just start both at 0.5. Okay, and we can pop that into here now. Nothing will happen. But if we now alter the min to 0.48 or 0.52, what that is now doing, it's allowing the hue setting to be 0.48 or 0.52, which is quite subtle. But that's kind of what we want here for the wood. We don't want it to change colour drastically, but we want it to change just a little bit. So before I duplicate, I also want to do the same thing with saturation. So let's just shift, duplicate this mapping node, and again, put the random into the value. Okay, and the value of saturation is set at 1 right now, so let's just set these two at 1. Okay, we'll put the results into the saturation input. Okay, and let's just, again, we want to be relatively subtle with the saturation here, so let's go 0.8 and 1.2. So we're going kind of 0.2 either side of 1. Okay, so this is probably going to be a little bit too much, but I just want to kind of demonstrate what it will do. So let's duplicate, and you can see there are slight differences in colour in each of those three. Okay, so can you see that? And this one's a little bit redder, I would say, but that's possibly a little darker, and then this one's got more of a yellow tint to it, and that will keep happening with each panel. Alright, so each panel has a slightly different colour. Okay, we can take that one step further though with an image texture. So given that this is using the UV map, we can actually alter the mapping of the UV image onto the object. Okay, so what we'll just do is we'll make a nice subtle change to the location, the rotation and scale, just to give a little bit of variation. So let's just delete those objects, come back to our original. Okay, and again, let's get our object info node. You could of course use the one up here, but just for the sake of keeping my nodes nice and clean. So again, we're going to use the map range node. We're going to use the random into the value, and so first of all we'll do the location. Okay, so this one should be kind of alright as is really. Okay, let's duplicate this, and again random into the value and the value into the rotation. Now this is going to have an effect because it's rotating the texture, so we want to be quite subtle about this really. So let's just go minus 0.1 plus. Okay, so it's going to be quite subtle, that twist, but that's kind of what we want. Okay, and again, let's duplicate for a final time the random into the value, and this time we're going to alter the scale. So we want kind of these to both start at 1. And again, we don't want to change the scale too much. If we change it a lot, it's going to be obvious that these panels don't necessarily feel like they live together. So let's just go kind of 0.1 either side on the scale, 1.1. Okay, so that's kind of, so just to review that, we've got a map range node with a full 0 to 1 going into location. we've got a minus 0.1 and a plus 0.1 going into the rotation for a subtle rotation of the texture. And then finally, we've got this final one going into the scale. So we've just got 0.1 either side of 1. Okay, so now let's just give ourselves a little bit more space. So now if I duplicate this panel, okay, so we get our nice variation in color, but we can see also, if we look closely, the grain is now different on each panel. Okay, it's subtle, but if you look kind of closely at them, if anyone was looking closely at them, you can very clearly see that it's not the same grain being repeated. And this just gives the feeling that all these panels are kind of been, you know, brought together or whatever, but they're not just literal duplications of each other. Okay, so let's just talk about how we would use this with an array modifier. So let's just add an array modifier here. So we go to modifiers, add modifier, generate array. Okay, we'll have it going up on the Y. Let's go 1.5. How's that? Maybe a bit too far. 1.2. Okay, let's go 1.2. And then let's create, say, 10 of them. So right now, they're all exactly kind of the same because it's treating it as one object. So let's just apply that. Okay, and again, it's still one object right now. If we go into edit, make sure everything is selected, press P, separate by loose parts, and now we've got 10 separate objects. And you can see now, so using the array modifier, you apply it and then separate by loose objects, and you can see now that each panel looks just a little bit different from the one previous, and it avoids all of that duplication. For more Blender tutorials, please like and subscribe. See you on the next one.